All right, all. Hi, thank you for joining us today. My name is Christy Aparo, and I am the Director of Guided Personal Supports Program and the Community Resource Center at Northeast Arc. Today, we have a wonderful program for you for DDS, Department of Developmental Services 101. Before we start with AJ and Rebecca, I'm going to give a quick network overview, just give you an update on the things within the Northeast Transition Collaborative Network. Then we'll hear from Rebecca and AJ from DDS. We'll open it up to questions. We have a wonderful resource guide again for you this month, and then our upcoming events. So here's a little bit about our network. We are the Northeast Transition Collaborative Network. It was started by the Community Resource Center at Northeast Arc in response to gaps in communication and collaboration between school districts, agencies and providers, young adults, parents and caregivers, and community groups. I can officially say that today our group has grown to over 600 people in our network in all of the Northeast region of Massachusetts. So Merrimack Valley, North Shore, Metro North, Central Middlesex, and Lowell area. This is a great opportunity for all within to talk about the person-centered planning process for transition age. We have held 2 other virtual sessions, and then last month we held our professional development for over 60 teachers at the Liberty Tree Mall in our Center for Linking Lives. And very sadly, our wonderful, wonderful Central Middlesex Community Resource Specialist, Eva, is moving to Florida. So I'm just going to put in a little plug here. Our team is looking for a new community resource specialist. If anyone is looking to make a career change, feel free to take a look at the job posting that we do have. We have a wonderful collaborative team here at the Community Resource Center, and this particular role is embedded in Central Middlesex, so the area office is in Acton, and that person goes to the Acton DDS area office 4 days a week and then comes to the Liberty Tree Mall at our Center for Linking Lives on Thursdays. It's a wonderful role where you're embedded with DDS, but you work for Northeast Arc, and you connect individuals and families with really valuable resources to their local communities. So if you're interested, feel free to scan the link below. And then today I did want to just give a quick overview of our website that we have. Our website is called ecommunityconnections.org. Here you can find free and inclusive events, accessible spaces for all abilities. I'm going to attempt to go over to our website. So here you can see the homepage of our website. You can search events, you can search resources. If you scroll down, we have our featured resources. And then we have all of our upcoming events. These are all of our events that are out in the community that are accessible. Some of them are free, some of them do cost money. And you can also view it from the map. So if you are looking in a particular area, you can click here. And then one other thing that I did want to show was our resources. So if you click up here under resources and scroll down to the Northeast Transition Collaborative, you can see that we have all of our resource guides and our recordings from each session there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to pass it on over to Carrie. Carrie Neenan is our Community Resource Specialist in North Shore area.
Thank you, Christy. So I just wanted to take a minute to introduce our speakers for today. So our presentation today will give you an overview of services provided by the Department of Developmental Services, or DDS. for children up through adulthood. We have two speakers today from DDS. We have Rebecca Anderson, who works with the Family and Children's Services in Northeast Regional Office of DDS, and AJ Cullen is the Autism Program Coordinator for the Northeast Regional Office. And as Christy mentioned, we'll have some time for Q&A at the end after Rebecca and AJ's presentation. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type them into the chat as you think of them, and I'll be kind of keeping track of the questions, and we'll ask them at the end of the presentation. So I will turn it over to Rebecca and AJ.
I am using two screens from home today, so I am fighting with both of them as we speak. Can everyone see the slides okay? Because I cannot see you.
Yes, we can see them.
We can, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So I will go ahead, and Rebecca, please feel free to indicate when you're ready to move on.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. We're going to talk about how DDS is structured, how you become eligible, what are some of the potential services that are available, and how to get involved. So to begin, DDS has approximately 47,000 people, children and adults, eligible for services. That does not mean they're all being served, but they are eligible. We try to always work with families and individuals in a way that will help them to create their own individualized service plan for the life that they're looking for. Everybody has a different vision of what their life should be. And we try to make sure that we're always looking at people as individuals and creating service plans based on individual needs, not on a menu of choices that someone could choose from. And then, of course, we provide our services by contracting with nonprofits in the area to provide the services. And then we also have some self-directed options that we'll talk about in a few minutes. Next slide. Just wanted to share the map with you so that you could see what the Northeast region is. We cover the area from Salisbury all the way out to Stowe and Dunstable and down to Gloucester and Rockport. This is color-coded to denote the different area offices. We have 5 area offices in the Northeast region, and the color coding depicts each area. Next. DDS is structured with a central office in Boston. They're actually in the process of moving right now. And then we have 4 regions. Sometimes Central West is considered 2. It once was 2. It's a very large geographical area. So there are times that when we do different services or RFRs or different things such as that, we will consider Central West to be 2 because it's such a huge geographical area. Otherwise, we have the Northeast, Central West, Southeast, and Metro. Next slide. All right, so eligibility. This is usually the burning question, what everybody wants to know most about. So there are a couple of categories of eligibility, and we'll go over them now. Children's eligibility has essentially 2 categories. There are times in children's development that with the appropriate supports, they may outgrow their developmental delay. So in some situations, based on the materials provided, the eligibility department may find a child eligible only until the age of 5, at which point they would reapply and become eligible from the age of 5 to 22. Children's eligibility goes to the age of 22. Then you have adult eligibility. Most people apply for adult eligibility around the age of 18. Sometimes slightly younger if you're going to be graduating on time with your graduating class, when you'd be, approximately 18 years old. So you would apply for adult eligibility in order to begin your transition out of children's services into adult services and enter into whatever it is you want to create for your life. Next slide. One of the great things about DDS is that we support people across their lifespan. The primary supports are when you're an adult. DDS is considered an adult agency. We are a voluntary agency. We are not an entitlement. School is the entitlement. So therefore, we always encourage families to really maximize the use of their time while in school and make sure they're getting the supports that they need, and they're working with their school department to get those pieces. You would still be connected to the department, and the department can still help you with a lot of things in terms of learning and understanding and accessing things that are available in the community, resources that are available to everybody. Often it's hard to find those on your own when you're busy living life and raising kids and working. So the area office service coordinators can be very helpful. And it's important to start your relationship with them early on, because it's that relationship that's going to help you really connect with the pieces out in the community and within the department that you need the most. So from 0 to 3, most typically people will work with early intervention. And then that's the way they're going to most likely come into the department. Early intervention is going to support them in applying and helping them get those pieces together and understanding transitioning out of early intervention into the public school and becoming eligible for DDS. You'll work with a children's service coordinator during that time, once you're eligible. From 3 to 18, you'll be assigned a children's service coordinator within the area office. School continues to be the primary source of services, although we do have family support programs that we'll talk about in just a minute. So those two categories have a children's service coordinator. Next, in the age group of 18 to 22, that's when you're going to be assigned a transition coordinator. And this is a really important time in a person's life when they're coming out of the school system and trying to figure out what life is going to be after school and what things they want to have in their transition program within school to figure out who they are and where they want to go. So the transition coordinator really helps the individual and the family plan for the future, look at what the options are, and figure out what might best work for that person in that situation. Because again, we try to individualize our approach with each person and try to make sure that each person is creating the life that they want to have. After 22, DDS becomes the primary source of services and supports. However, again, DDS is a voluntary agency. So if someone does not want the services that we have available, that's okay. They're not required to accept them, but we try to offer things that are going to be most in line with what that person is looking for and trying to create for themselves. Next slide. So when Kerry was doing her introduction, she said that my role is family support and children's services. I am the Northeast Director of Family Support, and I have to say, this is when I become the most lively with my presentations because it is my favorite section. I really enjoy family support because supporting families is how we are able to really create the best life possible for everybody. Families are always looking to support their loved one and help their loved one to be healthy and happy and have a great quality of life. And one of the great ways to do that is to be connected to your local family support center. We have family support centers across the state of Massachusetts, approximately 52. And we have 3 different types. We have what I'm going to refer to as a general family support center, which is where we started originally. And then we came into developing cultural linguistic family support centers. We have a lot of pockets of families out in our communities that are from a different culture, speak a different language. And we have learned that the best way to meet those needs is to truly understand their culture and their language, and to understand that from the perspective of people who have lived that life. So we try to really connect families with the support that's going to be the best for them, that they're going to be able to best understand. And then as time went on, we learned that we needed autism support centers, and our autism support centers are fantastic. In the Northeast region, we have 2 regional autism support centers. One is for children and one is for adults. Again, when I say for children, that's through the age of 22. And for our regional autism support center, it's 18 and over. Family support centers offer all of these supports that are on the screen here with the exception of the Adult Autism Support Center does not do service or navigation. So service navigation is when someone comes in and says, I really need to find this service. Maybe it's therapy, maybe it's fuel assistance. Maybe it's, I need to apply for all of these different things. So if it were something such as fuel assistance, the Northeast ARC with their Autism Support Center and their other family support centers could easily connect them with that. But if it's going to be something larger and connecting with multiple things, they might ask the local center to assist with that. So family support centers are wonderful for people who are living at home with their family of any age. You actually do not need to be eligible for a DDS to first go to a family support center because they can assist you with the eligibility process. It can be a daunting process with the online application and the different pieces of information that you need to supply. And a family support center is very knowledgeable about the process and can help you with that. They offer family trainings to learn more about things that exist out in the world, to learn more about how to advocate for your child, to learn more about maybe housing or the IEP process or transition. Family support centers offer social and recreational activities. And I think one of the things that is so wonderful about a family support center is the parent networking. When you work with a family or when you talk with a family that has lived experience, that is living a life similar to yours with some of the challenges you might have, you just feel seen and heard in a different way. So I really encourage families to participate in opportunities to network with other parents, whether it be support groups or activities and events or trainings. Next slide. So we have centers where you can go in and actually get resources, get materials, talk to someone, or connect to do trainings. But family support is larger than just the centers. We have a variety of programs that are offered. All of these would be things that except for family leadership, all of these would be things that you would access through your service coordinator. So as you can see, it's really important to get to know your service coordinator. You become eligible, you get assigned a service coordinator, and you might not feel like you have anything going on right then that you really need to reach out and connect with them. But it works really well if your service coordinator knows you before there's a crisis or before there's an urgent need. Or before you really need an answer right then. When they get to know you, when things are calm and things are going all right, they can really get a good understanding of what your family is, how your family operates, and what you're looking for. And then that kind of keeps you in their mind. And if something else opens up or they hear about a resource or they hear about something going on in another community, they would think of you and reach out to make sure that you're aware of that. So I really encourage families to create their relationship with their service coordinator from the beginning, not wait until there's an issue. And I think that even goes larger, that being well connected to your school, well connected to your community, well connected to your centers, that's always going to create the best connections and information for you to get whatever it is you need. So some of the other family support programs is planned and emergency respite. We are fortunate in the Northeast region to have a couple of respite opportunities for adults, which would be 18 and older. We have in our region a medically complex respite home, and that's very unique. And you can access that through your family support, through your area office service coordinator. And it's a referral process, of course, but it's a wonderful opportunity for families who have medically complex family members that require nursing supports. It's a 24/7 home with nursing round the clock. But another way that we do respite is there are programs out there, caregiver to caregiver respite. There are different ways of having funding provided for you to have respite in your own home with a caregiver coming in. So there's some opportunities, and those would all be accessed through your DDS service coordinator. We also have in-home and community supports, which might be a companion, it might be behavioral supports, it could be a variety of things. Again, access through your service coordinator. And flex funding is something that if you are eligible for DDS, you can access based on the budget and your area office's needs. you can access some funding for maybe recreational opportunities, maybe a short-term emergency, or a piece of equipment. So that would be something that you would discuss with both your service coordinator and the Family Support Center. Lastly, family leadership. Family leadership is an intensive training program for families. It's not about being eligible for DDS or not, but it's a training opportunity where you learn how to be a spectacular advocate for your family member. And you learn that by understanding all of the different systems, how they work together, and how advocacy can change things. This program is run every year. It's run across the state in a couple of different formats and also in different languages. And it is truly a game changer. What you learn in this program is amazing. And I encourage everyone, if you'd like to learn more about advocacy and be a great supporter for your family and your community, it's a wonderful opportunity. Next slide. All right. So transitioning to adult services. It's a big change. I think it's a big change for the average student that's going to come out of high school and maybe go off to a job or college. It's a big deal for families when their child is growing up and going to be going on to life after high school. And so it's really important that we work together to support all the families that have supports through DDS to make sure that a wonderful vision of life after high school is developed. It's important to partner really closely with your school, for the families to partner with the school, for the schools to partner closely with families and the DDS team, so that we can really learn about what that person wants, what they want for their future, how they want their future to look, rather than what we think as their family might be best. It's about the person, and that's a real shift sometimes for parents. So working together as a group, as a team to support your student is going to be the ideal. I have a little bug here. Next slide. So the DDS transition coordinator is such an important role. And the foundation of this for the best service delivery is really about the relationship. So I've mentioned several times that we want things to be individualized. And how do you get a good individualized plan? Is by really understanding who the individual is and what they want. So working with your transition coordinator that's assigned after you're found eligible for adult services is really important. That transition coordinator comes in and helps with the ITP and developing that and starting to map out what life is going to be like, what direction you're heading, what you're looking for. Next one. So, as people are approaching the age of transition, so which actually really starts around 14 in the school system with your IEP, you're going to have those first conversations around 14 or 15 about transition. So that's happening within the school system. And then separate from that, families applying for eligibility. So you always hear about the 688 referral and DDS eligibility. You hear about them around the same time, but they're completely different and both completely important. The school district is required to file the electronic 688 referral to DDS. That happens somewhere around the 18th birthday, and there's a few variables there. However, somewhere around the 18th birthday, maybe as early as 16 and a half if you're, depending on when you're graduating with a diploma or without. That referral will include the 3-year assessments and the IEP, ITP. All of those things will be sent, and that's kind of really the beginning process. So the 688 gets sent in. If eligibility has not already been done, filed, and in process or already completed, then our eligibility office will send to the family the packet of information that's necessary to apply for eligibility. They'll have 3 different times where they reach out in a couple formats. And if the family chooses not to respond, then that's the choice that they've made. The 688 referral will stay in the system. It does not go away. It stays there. And if in the future the family applies, then that will already exist. We won't need to go back to a school from years ago. The 688 is also very important because this is the funding mechanism. Someone who does not have a 688 referral submitted does not end up on the POS for the year, which means there is not funding directly attached to them for the services that they're looking for, which is problematic because services cost money and there needs to be money to pay for the services. So that 688 is really, really important. We know that school systems know about this, and we know that school systems also get very bogged down with running a whole school and all the many students they have. So there are times that this might get lost in the shuffle. So it's important for families to know about this as well so that they can also remind their school district that they need this submitted. And then eligibility will happen around the same time, but they're two separate things. They're related, they're not the same, and both are extremely important because if you want to be eligible for DDS and you want to have any services, there needs to be some money. So if we do them both, then everything will hopefully work out. Next slide. So here's just a few reminders. Your child eligibility goes until the age of 22. Even if you've applied for adult eligibility, your 22 is when child eligibility ends, and then adult eligibility typically starts at 22. There's some exceptions, and it's a little challenging to describe, but for the most part, our kids that come into DDS services most frequently stay in school until 22, but we now have a lot of kids that aren't. They're graduating with their diploma. So those kids, the adult eligibility does start a little bit younger because they're in a different place. The 688 referral, as I said, that secures your funding. Really, really important. And, you know, sometimes there might be some discussion around who should be the lead agency. When DDS is named the lead agency, there still can be referrals for other agencies like what was once MRC and now is Massability or DMH. Referrals can be made to other agencies, and we can work collaboratively and very frequently MRC / Massability and DDS do a lot to support a person in terms of job readiness and job skills and obtaining a job and being secure on the job, and then DDS picking up after 90 days and supporting. So those things can happen at the same time. So if someone wants to get a job right away, that's fantastic, and we would love for that to happen. But if DDS is named first, you can still have that. But if MRC becomes the lead agency, Massability, excuse me, then after 90 days of stability on the job, that service will be done. And if you need that service again, you will reapply to Massability. So having DDS in place already gives you a safety net, because although the Massability supports of job security will be gone because you've achieved the 90 days of stability on your job, that's fantastic. So they'll be done with their service, and DDS could pick up the job coaching after that. So it's a good support to have. And family support centers can help families with the application. You do not need to be eligible already to go into a family support center. I did see briefly, because I'm easily distracted, that there was a question in the box about how do you find the family support centers. And I know we're going to answer lots of questions at the end, but on the mass.gov webpage, there is the DDS section, and within that section, family support is highlighted, and there's a lookup for both area offices and for family support centers. So that information is accessible. Next slide.
All right, so I will be taking over for Rebecca from here, and we will be talking about adult eligibility and adult services in general. Rebecca already gave an overview of our eligibility criteria in previous slides, so I will not belabor this slide or our next one. But as a reminder, if you have a child who has been eligible for DDS prior to the age of 22, they will still need to reapply for adult eligibility. So that's a very important note to jot down for yourself. Also, as Rebecca indicated, we find that individuals most often start working on their eligibility application and paperwork around the age of 18. But as you'll see in the next slide, there are certain instances in which it's appropriate to get a jump start on that. And to reiterate, in order to be eligible under our traditional intellectual disability criteria, one must be domiciled within the state of Massachusetts and also have a diagnosis of an intellectual disability as defined by CMR. So for community developmental disability supports, some of you may have heard of this referred to as our autism only eligibility or ASD only, but the accurate term is CDDS, our Community Developmental Disability Supports. And the reason that it's important to have an understanding of the true eligibility definition here and name is that it's not truly an autism only eligibility, because our CDDS eligibility encompasses not only autism without an intellectual disability, but also those who may be diagnosed with Prader-Willi syndrome or Smith-Magenis syndrome. The big difference that you see here in the CDDS eligibility is that these individuals are not required to have an intellectual disability. So many of these individuals may be graduating with their high school class. They may be leaving school closer to 18 as opposed to 22. So these would be the instances where you would want to begin working on eligibility a bit earlier on. Our CDDS services began as a result of the Autism Omnibus Bill, which was passed in 2014. So we're going on about 11 years now of serving the CDDS population. And what we have found in those years is that there are many supports and services that are similar to the traditional supports and services we've offered historically to those with intellectual disabilities, but we've also found that there are unique needs that this population demonstrates, which has prompted us to fine-tune some of our pre-existing services, as well as create new services specifically for this population. We previously indicated that the transition process for those applying for eligibility under the CDDS criteria is very, very similar to those applying for ID eligibility, with the one caveat, as I previously mentioned, being that you may start working on that eligibility process a bit earlier if the individual is intending to leave school at 18 or with their graduating class. Rebecca did a wonderful job providing us an overview of some of the different roles within DDS, as well as the roles of the area offices. And for those that are eligible for DDS under this particular criteria, they are assigned a specific autism service coordinator within the area office that is geographically aligned with where you reside. And similar to services that we provide for individuals with intellectual disabilities, we do have a wide range of services available to the CDDS population. Things similar to what you would expect day and employment services, in-home services, and more that we'll talk a bit more about as we proceed. I touched a little bit on the fact that we have many services that are similar to that our intellectually disabled individuals access. Things such as traditional day programs, employment supports, home and community supports, etc. But we also have designed specific services such as our autism coaching services, our college navigation service, and others that are specifically targeted for this specific group of individuals. So our coaching, college navigation, certain services have been specifically designed for this eligibility group and therefore can only be accessed by that specific eligibility group. And these services were built and designed in response to the needs that we were hearing from the adults that we were supporting under the CDDS eligibility criteria, and involve one-to-one service delivery, helping to work on specific goals that are identified by the individual themselves. Additional services that may be available to the ID eligibility group include things such as shared living and adult family care, as well as group homes, family support, in-home supports, etc. And one of the really important takeaways that we always stress on this slide is that while services may be offered, they're not guaranteed. So we certainly do not have a spot for every DDS eligible individual in a group home or an adult family care setting. And residential services are based on a prioritization process based on the presenting needs of the individual. I tend to jump ahead when I talk about autism services because they are what I do day in and day out. So I've provided you a bit with an overview of coaching in college navigation. Our college navigation, again, would work with folks on a one-to-one basis who are enrolled in a college, whether it be on campus or virtually. It is not an academic tutoring service, but something that can provide autistic adults or those with PWS, Smith-Magenis, additional support in navigating post-secondary education options. We also have a specific adult autism support center that individuals from all 5 of our area offices can access. It is also housed at the Northeast ARC Center for Linking Lives, as we've talked about extensively so far this morning. And the Adult Autism Support Center specifically works with individuals that are eligible under that CDDS criteria and creates events and resources designed for that specific population. We also offer self-directed services, and our self-directed service models include our service delivery models, which is the image you have here on the screen, show not only our self-directed service options, but also point out our traditional services, which is what we've just talked about. So in addition to the services that we've discussed at length, we also offer self-directed services, which are these, the center and this last box here, agency with choice and participant directed. In our agency with choice services, some of the responsibility and onus is placed on the individual or the family to design their programming and the service delivery that the individual is going to receive. So as you can see here from the graphic with our traditional services, your DDS service coordinator is going to be doing the bulk of the work in finding an appropriate service for your loved one, in making those referrals, etc. However, as we transition into our self-directed services, we look at things such as agency with choice, which allow the family and individual to have shared responsibilities with an agency with choice provider, and puts a little bit more responsibility on the individual and family in designing what they want their programming to look like, having a say in who the staff may be, etc. And our participant-directed program is the program in which would place the most responsibility on the family and individual. They would be responsible for the hiring and firing of staff, designing all of the programmatic pieces of the program, and also responsible for payroll and things of that nature. as I said, I tend to jump ahead. So we'll look at these slides, which are going to give us a little bit of an overview of some of the things I've previously mentioned. So with our traditional services, again, that is going to place the onus on the service coordinator in DDS to work with a contracted agency that provides a particular service, whether it be employment supports, in-home supports, etc. And the agency in which DDS is contracted with is fully responsible for hiring, firing, paying the staff, training, coming up with programming, etc. And the program structure is specifically carried out by its agency's plan and goals. Our self-directed services, as I mentioned, have a bit more responsibility placed on the individual and family, and also allow the individual and family more control in being able to dictate exactly what they'd like their services to look like. Our agency with choice, as I alluded to earlier, allow for individuals and families to do things such as recommending employees to the agency to be hired, as well as negotiating the work hours in terms of employment, rate of pay. And the family and individual themselves will be providing that daily supervision and management of the employee. However, the provider agency will assist in training, evaluating employees, payroll, etc. We always encourage families to partner with DDS as an agency because DDS is only one part of the puzzle in supporting both children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And for families, it's really important to have a strong relationship with the service coordinator that's working with them or with their loved ones. And this can be achieved by developing strong lines of communication between the family, the school district, which I know many of you are from, and the DDS team, making sure that the DDS team are aware of the individual's goals, needs, etc., and also being willing to be flexible. We at DDS understand that what your loved one might need at age 22 is going to be very different than what they might need at 36 or 54. So we want to be flexible and creative and work with you as those needs and plans change. The DDS area office team, as well as many of us, like Rebecca and myself, that are out of our regional office, work hard to partner with teachers, school districts, etc., as early as possible. For the school districts that are on here, if you have someone that is working with DDS, invite that service coordinator or transition coordinator to the IEP meetings so that they can get a strong understanding of who the individual is, what they need, and be able to appropriately plan and support that individual as they leave school services and transition into adult supports. We always remind folks that adult supports are quite different than educational services, and they are not an entitlement. So just because someone is eligible for DDS services doesn't mean they're necessarily going to receive a service as they would in the public education system. Our contacts are here, both myself and Rebecca, as well as our colleague Erin, who is our regional eligibility coordinator in Guru. So if you have any eligibility specific questions, we always encourage those go directly to Erin. However, if they come to Rebecca or I, we will certainly connect you with her. So that concludes our presentation. I will end the screen share, and I believe Christy and team, we have about 13 minutes for questions.
Yes. I'm glad we have a few minutes here. Thank you, AJ and Rebecca, for all of that detailed information about DDS services. We did have one question come up during the presentation asking, basically, how do people find out who their family support center is and the contact information?
So if you're already connected to an area office, you certainly can simply ask your area office. But you also can look when you go through eligibility, they can tell you. You also can look online on mass.gov. There is the DDS page, and there's area office lookup and family support center lookup. But you also can ask me. You can reach out, send me an email, and I'll let you know too. So whatever works best for you.
And I'll just put out there too that our Community Resource Center team can also help with questions like that. So I'm the resource specialist for North Shore, but we also have a team covering the other DDS offices in Northeastern Mass. So we're happy to also point you in the right direction for questions like that. Let me check on some other questions. Someone did ask if they'll be able to get a copy of the presentation. So just to let everyone know, we are recording this presentation today, and we'll be sending out a copy of the slides in our post-program email later today. And we'll also be posting information about the recording and the link for that. Does anyone else have any other questions for Rebecca and AJ? I'm not seeing any so far. I think one of the biggest things that comes up is that 688 referral. Rebecca, can you just kind of reiterate the importance of that with, because we do have a lot of school team members on the call here, teachers and such. Can you just kind of mention why that 688 form is so important?
Absolutely. The 688 is so important. And I think sometimes it's forgotten that that's one piece and the adult eligibility is another piece. But it's so important because that's how money is attached to an individual to pay for those services that they need. And really, really encourage schools to get that in at the, at the right point, and to all the pieces that go with it so that families can feel comfortable knowing that the pieces of paper are all in place and the money's attached where it needs to be, and someone can finish school and feel already connected and not have those pieces hanging. So 688 is important because it's about money.
Yeah, very important for sure. One question that just popped up, Angelique asked, how close to transition does cognitive testing have to be completed? If a child already has an intellectual disability, does updated cognitive testing need to be completed again?
Yes, it does. In order to apply for adult eligibility, you need adult IQ testing. And adult IQ testing is quite different than children's IQ testing. So there are times when someone might be child eligible with an intellectual disability, but they won't be adult eligible. And the difference is that testing. So typically it's recommended that you can't have the adult IQ testing until 16. So somewhere after 16 and prior to applying for adult eligibility is when you should get that done.
Great. Maria asked if the team is thinking about 18 to 22 program, do we still want to process this by 16.5? I'd like to inform my team what we should do. The student would be undergoing at least one reevaluation.
I think I need that reworded. I don't fully understand what the question is.
I think what she's asking is, do they need to process information for adult services by 16 and a half if they're going into a post-high 18 to 22 program?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just wondering because I do have we have a program here that has level 3 students, and we were under the notion that we would wait until they're closer to the 18 to 22 mark to process and file a 688. So I just want to know your suggestions, if we should do it at 16 and a half or wait till they're closest to that 18 to 22 transition.
You normally would want to do it about 18 months prior to when you anticipate they're going to be leaving education-based services. So if that individual is transitioning from high school into a post-secondary ed program, but you anticipate they're going to stay in that program until they're 22, then doing it closer to that 18 and a half mark is appropriate. If you anticipate maybe they're only going to be in that program for about 2 years and maybe they're going to be leaving at about 20, you want to do it about 18 months ahead of time. Would you agree, Rebecca?
Absolutely. It's going to be most critical for the students that are leaving school with a diploma. It's most critical for those to get done on the early side. But the folks who are staying in longer, it's not going to be the same critical, but we do start planning our services 3 and 4 years out. I watch the lists years in advance. So we're already planning for, 27th. So if it gets in early, there's not a penalty of sending it in too early, but there kind of is if you don't send it in on time. So I would say get it done when you can, but earlier is better in my opinion.
I don't see any other questions unless anyone wants to unmute and ask a question if you can't access the chat.
I can share my screen and just share what we have coming up for the next couple of sessions.
Oh, hold on. Sorry, we just had a couple more questions
Oh,
pop
no
up.
worries. Go right ahead.
Megan asked, if a student has an ASD diagnosis but will be graduating with a diploma, is it possible to check off both DDS and MRC on the 688 form?
To my knowledge, and Rebecca, feel free to jump in if you believe differently. In that situation, I would advise that you select DDS because DDS is a lifelong service agency and would be able to provide that individual with services and supports for their lifetime, whereas MRC is a specific time limited service. And we work together. So if you select DDS for that student and working with MRC, which is now called Massability, is appropriate for them, the DDS team is very familiar in collaborating with Massability to provide an individual with those services and supports that are most appropriate for them.
Yeah, exactly, AJ. I think the piece, I mentioned it earlier in the slides that as AJ said, DDS is going to be with you once you're eligible for adult services, you're eligible for your lifetime, whereas MRC is a specific service. So you could have DDS and then you're working with your service coordinator to decide you want to have a job and you're not really sure about that. So your service coordinator helps you connect with MRC, Massability. They do some employment assessments and help you discover what kind of work you want to do. They get you set up on a job and then stabilized on the job. And after 90 days of stability, then DDS would step in with our version of job supports, which we contract with multiple agencies to support people in the workplace. And so that service would kick in. So MRC would cover it at the beginning, and then DDS would kick in. It's a wonderful collaboration. However, if MRC was the one that got the person instead of DDS through the 688 process, then they're going to finish with MRC. They're going to have their job. They're going to be stable on their job. MRC is going to end, and then there'll be no job supports if you don't already have DDS in place. So, and some people will do okay with that. Not everybody needs a job support, but we find that most of our folks do. And so DDS being the lead agency through the 688 process is what I think all people should do.
And one last question from Emily. She said, I've gotten mixed answers about IQ testing and what is eligible. If a school psychologist does a full IQ test, does that count or do they need outside testing?
I would recommend asking that question through email to Erin Kroll. I believe the outside testing is, and the full neuropsych is what we always do with the adult IQ testing. So I would reach out to Erin Kroll to definitely verify that because she is our eligibility guru.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca and AJ. So I just wanted to quickly mention what we have coming up for our next sessions. July 20, I know it's summer's coming up, but if you are not available, you're taking the summer off, please make sure to share this with your families. Now's a great time for them to talk about advocacy and recreation. So July 29th, we have our advocacy virtual session from 10 to 11. Nora Bent will be joining us from the ARC of Massachusetts. She is the Director of Government Affairs and Strategic Partnerships. There is a new transition bill that is coming out specific to transition. So she will be making sure she really touches on that. And then recreation opportunities will be August 12th from 10:30 to 11:30. We also have our working groups that are coming up over the next month here. Those are held here at the Center for Linking Lives at the Liberty Tree Mall. The first one is a letter of intent workshop held for parents and caregivers. It's from 6 to 9 p.m. This is a document that details all of the information one would need to know to best provide care for your loved one. And then we also have the Doc Box. It's a two-part workshop series, July 10th and 17th from 6 to 7, and has all the documents that you should gather in regards to your loved one. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at the Community Resource Center at ne-arc.org. Our website is there. We are located here at the Liberty Tree Mall in the Center for Linking Lives. Feel free to always come and visit us and reach out to us with any questions. Tomorrow, we will be sending a recording of this video along with our resource guide and all of our upcoming events and the slides to today's presentation. So I hope you all have a wonderful summer. Join us July 29th and in August, and we will see you later. Bye.